Okay everyone, this is going to be how to change a transmission filter and gasket and fluid in a 99 to or 98 to 2003, 2004. I can't remember right exactly when they quit these body styles. Anyway, here's your filter. This filter comes with a little gasket. Well, it's not quite a gasket. It's like a little bushing O-ring thing. And I'll show you how to do that. The old one just pops out. You just pop this one back in. This is a 12-bolt oil pan. I was running to the question, is it a 12 or 20 bolt? It's a 4T40E to 45E. It's basically the same transmission. The gasket is pretty well the same. It's a 12 bolt if you get with that question. You're going to need some brake parts cleaner to clean the if there's any metal shavings or anything in the pan. You want to clean that off, squirt it off. I use K&W Transex. This is not a publishing or anything like that I'm doing for K&W. I'm not doing that. I'm just doing a personal preference. This stuff really works. So I thought I'd show y'all guys how to do it. It helps with premature wear. It stops slips and conditions seals and cleans gum and varnish. Makes it shift and drive a whole lot better. Makes the spools come in a whole lot better. And I just buy regular Dextron Micron 3 CarQuest brand fluid. Again, not a publishing or anything like that. I'm just or promotion. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm just personal preference. It was cheap, so I went ahead and got it. And it's on sale right now, by the way. Here's the pan. There's your oil pan, and you got your transmission pan. To change this fluid, there's no plug in it. So what you have to do is you have to take off those back bolts, let the fluid drain, and then take off everything else. And yeah, I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. I'm going to take off these back bolts, and I'll show you what I mean by having to drain it. Okay, there's what I mean by draining. You have to take off those back 3 bolts, 4 bolts, however big your pan is. I've got a little Rubbermaid bucket or tote. Just let it go in. Yeah, you'll want to let that drain. Probably take about 5 to 10 minutes for it to drain. Maybe not even that. So, yeah. Another thing I was going to do, it's been having a problem whenever it gets a little warm. Whenever I put it in from park to drive, it takes it a second, and then whenever it does, it hits a little hard, and then it wants to slip, taking off. But then once you get going, it's fine. I think I'm going to try to change this fluid before I change the solenoid, the shift solenoids. Well, I can't show you up in there, but before I change the shift solenoids, I thought I might try to change the fluid one more time. The car was sitting for 2 years. I got it on the road to change the fluid about between 20 and 22,000. And I've got service manuals for this car, this motor and transmission. And it's actually called a service to life. You shouldn't have to change it but every 100,000 miles. But that's what GM wants you to do. They want you to bring it back and let them fix it, so it costs you more money, so they can suck you dry from, you know. Anyway, I prefer changing it between 20 and 25, maybe 30,000. I've been looking at a lot of the forums for these cars, and that's what they recommend, and I recommend it too. So just keep that in mind. And another thing, if it's shifting hard or shifting poor or long in between shifts, try this little trick and replace your transmission fluid. Yes, I'm still waiting. I've been here for like 10 minutes already. It takes a while, but it's well needed. Alright, so looks pretty red, but your magnet is really thick with shavings, really thick, and that's what the magnet's supposed to do. It's supposed to catch the shavings, so that's a normal thing. But when your magnet gets full, that little magnet pad gets full, and you see it all over the pan, you know you're way overdue for an oil change in this thing. Yeah, so I'm going to spray it down with parts cleaner, or dump this a little bit, this right here. Spray it down with parts cleaner, clean it up, and I'll show you what it looks like afterward. Okay, so I got that dumped out. Here's where your brake parts cleaner comes in. Just give it a good little spritz. Clean off your pan real good. Clean your pan. Just keep cleaning, just keep cleaning, just keep cleaning, 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 cleaning. What do? We clean, clean, clean. It might take this whole can of stuff, but it's well worth it. Dump it. And see, I'm doing it in the grass so it don't get all over the concrete or anything. Yeah, it takes a lot for this magnet to get cleaned up real good. You want to clean it out real good. Clean out all the little nooks and crannies. Clean it, clean it. You might want to get a little brush, but I don't think mine's that bad to need a brush around the edges, like where I'm spraying it at. Clean it up. I don't think mine's that bad, but the gasket won't seal it. And yeah, that can's about out. Then the last little bit of stuff that you want to get, you want to hold it up, you know, and spray it down. So I'm gonna have to put the phone down and come back. Okay, yeah. So one whole can of fluid or brake parts cleaner. Clean this pan real good. Depending on how dirty yours is, you might need 2, maybe 3. But if you have a parts washer, I don't have a parts washer, so that's the alternative. If you don't have a parts washer, and if you do have a parts washer, it still might be good to put some of this on it. Yeah. Now, what you want to do is this filter's still got a little fluid in it, but what you want to do is you just want to pull this one out. It just pulls out. I'm gonna have to put the phone down, but it just pull it out. You might have to wiggle it a little bit, but it just pops out, and I'll show you how to put the other one in. You'll want a crowbar. Put the filters out, the old filter, and this little is like a little bronze or brass ring. You can either take it out, or you can put the new one in. That they give you a new one whenever you buy the filter and gasket. but it usually just stays in here. You can either pry it out. Be very careful because this will break very easily. If you put too much pressure on it, you could chip the housing, and then your transmission's pretty well gone. I think I'll leave this one in, if it'll go, and just pop my old one, my new one in, and we'll see what happens from there. Okay, I actually had a change of plans. I had to pull the old one out, which is right here. This is a little, it looks like bronze. You'll just pull it out of where I showed you from. You'll need some of these, make it a lot easier on you. You just want to barely, I don't know if you can see it, but you can see where it's flattened right there on that one side. You just want to barely grab that lip and just pull down. That's all you have to do. Just barely grab that lip and pull down, and it should pop out. Now your other one goes, and this is the old filter, of course, but that little ring that I just showed you goes on this little nipple, and you'll want to take those pliers real gently and sort of twist it off and pull it up, and you'll want a rubber mallet to knock it in right through there where my finger is. I don't know if you can see it or not. I'm trying to get it to zoom in, but yeah, the camera might have flipped upside down with you there for a minute. But anyway, you just want to push that in with a rubber mallet, tap it in, and then just knock your old one in, or your new one in. That's all. It's in there. That's all you need. Then you can put your gasket back on, or put your gasket on your pan, and put your bolts in, tighten her down, put your fluid in, and go from there. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to get my manual out, but I think it's 6 quarts. When you change the filter and fluid, it takes 6 or 7 quarts. But I'll show you from there. Show you what we'll have to change. Okay, pan's on. You want to make sure you do it in a crisscross pattern when you tighten the bolts down. And just barely snug them. Well, a little more than snug. You don't want to over tighten it and then strip the bolts, and then you'd be, oh no. Yeah, you don't want to be doing that. So yeah, just snug the bolts. That's all you should need. Okay, so now we're going to put the fluid in. This thing does not have a dipstick. You're like, oh my gosh, it don't have a dipstick. Well, don't fret. You just reach your hand right back in here, right back behind the, I don't know if you can barely see the threads, where right at the tip of my finger, right under the exhaust pipe. This little cap screws on down there. Hold on, let me see if I can't get a flashlight down in here. There's where the cap goes, right there. There's where you put your fluid in. So you want to reach your hand down in there. Make sure your car's cooled, because you'll burn your hand on that pipe. Take your cap off, and the book says bottom pan removal, which is basically the same thing as what changing the fluid and filter. You want to do for metric 6.5 liters. For English, 6.9 quarts. That's for the bottom pan removal. 6.9 quarts. And like I said, your filter goes in there, and I'll show you what I done for a funnel. Okay, so here's my funnel. It's just a tube, like 3/8 gas line, and a funnel. Hold on just a second. You want to stick it down behind the throttle body, all that mess down in there. If I can get it. There we go. There's what you want to do. Stick it down in there, and the hose is, let me get a light down in there. The hose is stuck right down in there, and it goes all the way up to there. That's what you want to do. We'll grab our fluid, put our fluid in, move our books out of the way here. We'll put one quart in, wait a minute, see if the gasket's leaking. If it's not leaking, then we'll continue putting fluid in it. But at least if you don't tighten the bolts good, I would prefer putting one quart in and see if it leaks before you put any more in, because then if you put all that in and it starts leaking out, then you've pretty well wasted it all. So yeah, you want to put that in there. Wait for that to go down. Takes it a little bit. We'll go under here. And we'll sit. The pan's dry, so if it's leaking, I'll know that I didn't tighten the bolts good enough. And it's dry. I did this on my aunt and uncle's Buick one time, and their Buick actually had a dipstick, which was awesome. I wish Chevrolet would have done that with theirs, with this Malibu. But no, another thing where you have to go back to the dealership to get your transmission filter changed and fluid checked. Another thing, you can actually check this fluid. Put it on level ground, and that little bolt right there, put it on level ground, unscrew that bolt, and leave the car running. If it squirts out pretty good, you got fluid. If it just barely trickles down the side, it needs some fluid put in. It needs about a half a quart to a quart put in it. If that fluid, if it's not coming out in a good stream and shooting across here, you might have a little too much. But if it's like a good little, if it's going straight out pushing real hard, you got too much fluid in it. But if it's like and it sort of curves down before it hits this subframe, you got just enough. But if it just barely runs down the side right here, just like barely, you don't have enough. You need another quart. But I'm gonna put, it looks pretty good. I'm gonna put another quart in it, and go from there. Okay, another quart. This makes second quart. This makes the second quart. I was actually talking with a guy, I think last week, and he was saying his Malibu is having a hard time. Whenever it gets warm, it takes it a second to go into gear in the drive. And I thought, well, mine's doing the same thing. I thought I might just replace the shift solenoids. But I think I'll try this first, because this is the more simpler way to see if it's going to help. So instead of having to take that whole tire off, the strut, shock, all that, besides messing with that, and having to drop this side of the motor and transmission, you can see, I don't know if you can see, but you can see the seam where you'd have to take off this half of the case to get to those shift solenoids. And look what you'd have to do. You'd either have to do from up top. The most easier way is to go to the side, take all that off, then get to your shift solenoids. But I thought I would try the fluid first, because it's more of a simpler way to do it. I was looking at a guy who done his shift solenoids on his Malibu, and it took him 12 hours to do it. It's ridiculous. But if it has to be done, it has to be done. But yeah. Now this next quart I put in will be the Transex. I put 3 quarts, 2 down there, and 1 right here makes 3. I put 3 of them in it before I put that Transex, just to sort of help it, you know. Still no leaks. That's a good sign. Let's make sure before I let it down. Yeah, no leaks. So we're good. We're good now. Okay. Transex time. I usually like shaking it up, get it all mixed up and good. Just want to fill that up, pull it off. Now, I like doing this every fill up. I mean, not every fill up, but every change. I like to put this in every change. That way, it'll help prevent premature wear, slip, all that stuff. All that nasty, horrible stuff. And I apologize for the camera going back and forth. It's hard to do things with a camera, with a phone camera in your hand, without it wanting to go to the side. So I do apologize for that in advance. But I'm gonna finish putting fluid in this. I'll let her down and start her up and see how she does. Oh, one other thing I forgot to tell is that about 20,000 miles ago, well, about 18, 19, yeah, about 20,000 miles ago, I changed the filter and fluid, but I noticed when I took the gasket off the pan, it was already cracked and busted. So if you replace the gasket that's not factory, make sure, a recommendation, I would change it about 20,000 miles, just because it was already cracked. It wasn't leaking, but it was already cracked and busted, but it wasn't leaking. So maybe this will fix my problem. Maybe it was a little low, because like I said, it didn't start acting up till about 150,000. It didn't start acting up till then, and I've had the car, when I got the car, it had 37,000 on it. So yeah, you just want to make sure of them things. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna start her up. Oops, right in the fluid. Okay, so we'll start her up. Well, we'll let it run for a minute before I put it in drive. It's actually got 151,000 on it. We'll let the temperature hand get up a little bit before I put it in drive or park. sounds good. I think about 2 weeks ago, I replaced the injectors in it. Take the whole top intake off and replace the fuel pressure regulator while I was at it too. I showed in a video before, I put a Flowmaster 40 series on this thing. It gives it that nice low tone rumble. Nothing real loud, just sounds good. Okay, here we go. Real smooth, nice. Okay, let's take her for a drive and see what she does. Alrighty, here we go. Now it hit a little hard in drive just a minute ago, but it'll be all right. So far, so good. I recommend doing this, changing the filter and fluid about every 25,000. It's up at operating temperature, and like I said, when I got the car, I had 138,000 on it. It's now got 151, and that's about 19,000, something like that. But of course the car was sitting for 2 years, so and I just about got rear-ended. That's awesome. It does lovely. It does lovely. Thanks for watching.